Hello to the curious and welcome to episode 2 of this e-learning platform video. Now in this episode what we're going to be doing is looking at authentication with Strapi's backend. Our goal in this episode is purely functional. We want to be able to have the user go to the site, register with Strapi's backend, and then log in, go to the profile page, be able to sign out, and all the normal stuff that you'd be able to do in a user session on any site. Now, what we want to be able to do is if they leave and they come back, they'll still be logged in until they decide to log out. We will obviously put a timer on that, maybe 7 days or something, but that's something that we'll decide later on. And it's also something that you can decide in your project. We'll leave it open and you guys can decide how you want it on your project. But that's the goal for this episode, authentication with Strapi's backend, so we can have successful registrations and authenticating the user so they can access different parts of the site. So without further ado, make sure to like and subscribe, click the bell notification to know when all the videos in this series come out, but let's get building. So this is where we left off last time. So we've got a very basic, I guess, title here. We've got a little button. If we have a look here, it fetches the courses. So we are connected to the API. However, this is connected to the courses API, which is all fine. But we want to connect to the auth login API or the auth endpoint. The reason we want to do that is we want to be able to access users, log them in and log them out and register them. Now, because Strapi is currently migrating to Auth 0 and NextJS doesn't play nice with a lot of things, our options for authentication are quite slim. So what I've done here is I've come up with a custom solution that works with Strapi, works with NextJS, and a few other interesting tools. Let's go have a look to see how that all is going to work. The first starting point, however, is just clearing some of this and adding a header. And we'll start to add some structure to the site now. Through the header, we'll be able to navigate the pages. We'll be able to do some links to pages that users might not necessarily have access to unless they log in. They can also have sign in and register buttons as well. So all kinds of things that we're going to add that'll be useful for authentication in the header. So let's add the header now. So we'll open up VS Code. We've got the page .tsx here. And what we'll do is we'll get this, delete it, and add a typography component from Material UI. And what we'll do is we'll just put welcome to Curious Courses, and we'll add a variant, and we can say this is maybe a H6, and we'll say the component is H1. We do not need this anymore, so we can delete that. Right, that is much simpler. Let's just have a quick look. There we go. So now it's just very simple. Welcome to Curious Courses. We're also pulling in from Material UI styling, so you can see now that we're using Roboto as our font family. But let's go ahead and add our header now. So within our app directory, we'll create a new folder called Components, and we'll add header. We'll add a header component file, and then we will also add an index.ts file. And the reason why we're adding an index.ts file is essentially if we ever want to import the header component, we don't have to type in header as the import. We can simply just type in header. So components. And the reason why we can do that is because this becomes the default pointer to say, no, I'm the index, I'm the first file that you're going to find in this folder, and I'm going to point you to this component. So we'll go here and create the header component. So we'll just use some semantic CSS. So we'll say header, and we'll just put a list item and we'll have maybe 3 list items. That was using Emmet, by the way. We've got a video on Emmet if you haven't already seen it or know what it is. It's a way to use abbreviations to do quick HTML. It's built into VS Code. So let's just put curious courses here, home, and then profile, I guess. We can put profile here for now. And then also what we can do is we can add some buttons. We'll use MUI. So we'll put what can we put? So sign in, sign out, and register. So we'll probably put this in its own element. We'll call it a div. And then we will also add some styling. So we're going to use a Sass module file. So we'll call it header.module.sass. And essentially what this is doing is it's using CSS modules to style this. So we'll put a header in here. We want a button menu, button group actually. Button group, go back here, and we'll add class name sass.header. Then we need to actually import the button menu. So we'll import Sass from, so that should be importing Sass from the module CSS. So that will be the module name. And then we're grabbing header from there and button menu. Let's just add some styling here. Add a little bit of styling there. We'll add 1 rem of gap. Cool. So now that we've added this header component, we actually need to use it. So let's go down to layout here, add the header within here. Awesome, there we go. So that is the header added. It's complaining that we're not using the use client abbreviation. So let's add that here. Okay, we don't need that here, get rid of that. Forgot to export this, export. All right, there we go. Right, so we can see here the buttons need a bit of styling and this just needs a bit of sorting out. So let's go back here and let's wrap this. Let's put a class name on here, call it menu. So we'll go here. Let's just say we want list style type none. I like to add these at the top. Display flex, gap 1 rem. So yeah, it's a lot nicer. We'll say header, justify content space between. So now we have the buttons on that side, which is fine. Let's just align this in the center. That's better. So that's in the center now. Let's go to the buttons here and we're going to add a variant of contained. So we have these as proper buttons. Now we want these to be slightly different colors. So let's go sort that out now. Use multiple cursors. So we'll go color and we'll say error for now. So I want sign out to be an error, sign in to be success. So sign in success and we'll have register as info. Yeah, I am happy with that. And then we just want, I guess we want this to be a bit nicer. We'll have curious courses as a button actually. And then we'll use ography within here. We'll just say href. We want it to just go to the home page. And we want a variant to be just text. We'll set a variant to this as well. We'll say h6. I'll add a class name here of sass.logo. Go pop in logo and we'll say text transform initial. So what that does is it essentially stops it from being uppercase. Font weight, say 600 for now. Let's go change the color on this button. So we'll just set the color to white here. So we'll set the color to inherit. So we want it as default as possible. And we want these to be link components. And we'll have them currently go to the home for now. Want this to go to the profile page. Just go to the menu styling and we'll say target the anchor tags, because that's essentially what these links are. You can see that they're anchor tags here. We're just going to say text, decoration, none. We're also going to say on hover, we do want text, decoration, underline. So we add that and we add these to be in the center. So that's in the center now. We just want these to be a particular color. Now, the best thing to do for color is is definitely using Material UI's theming system. So we've got these pages here. So within there, we'll probably want to use typography and just put home. Do the same here. We'll do profile and we'll just add a color. We'll say inherit. So I think this is using like primary. Just set it to white for now. Fact. Let's actually set up the theme. Let's set up a dark theme. Let's go to the layout component and we'll set up. So let's set up a theme in the layout component. So essentially it's just a really basic Material UI theme. And all we want is this little part here that just says we want dark mode, and that's it. And then we'll add a little bit of styling to the layout itself. So we want it to have a black background with the color white as often as we can. Max width of 80 rem, which means essentially it stays in the center because it's a max width of 80 rem. And then this margin also just means it's got margin from both sides to keep it in the center. And then we've added a theme provider around the header and the child components. So it's using dark themes. And now we'll be tapping into all the dark theme colors for Material UI. If we go here, I don't think we need to change anything now, but if we go to the home page and refresh, you can see these have all slightly changed color. This hasn't quite changed yet, but we can sort that out here. So we'll just say color white for now. Let's just set this to the paragraph element as well, because we are using typography. Is there anything overriding this? Put it in quote marks, that's why. It's this switching from inline styling to style sheets that's messing me up. Okay, cool. Right, so that is there. I mean, that's a bit annoying, that little hover animation. Let's actually change this. Let's go to header. So we won't have this as a button anymore. We'll have this as a link. So what we'll do is we'll just slightly move this class name higher up. We'll put this on the link here. Then we'll go back here. And then we'll say on hover, text decoration none. Just slap an important on here. So to get rid of that hover effect, essentially what we're doing is we're using the logo class name here to hook in. And we'll just add this. We have to do an important to override some of the MUI styling because specificity wasn't helping there. Which essentially means the more specific you are, the higher the chance that you're going to essentially going to be able to style it or style it the way you want. So we've got home and profile here. You can see at the bottom, or maybe you can't see that. If I click this, it'll try to take me to the profile page, but there isn't a profile page. What we'll do is we'll just quickly create a profile page now. And in fact, we'll create a few blank pages. Just for now. So we'll go to and we'll go new file and we'll go profile page.tsx. We'll create register. We'll also create logout. So we'll say logout. We'll just copy and paste that and put profile. Put register here. Okay. We'll change these to typography components later. This probably won't stay as it is anyway. So the benefit of doing this now is just for testing. So if we go to the profile page now, we should see profile. Go home, should see the home page, and that also the logo takes us to the home page as well. Okay, probably hook up some of these buttons as well. So if we go to the header, so register, put href, register, href, logout. And we should probably have a login page as well. So we'll do href login. So we'll create one more page. Cool. Right, so that login page is done as well. We go here, we go to sign in, login, sign out, log out, register. There we go. So we've got the core pages set up, which is great. We just need to do something with them now. So we'll start with the home page. Now, if you remember, we used it to connect to the courses API to fetch that information, but we're going to be trying to navigate to a different API. We're going to be navigating to the Strapi authentication endpoint. And that's what's going to enable us to query whether a user is using the right credentials, and then if they're logged in or not, and lots of other metadata as well. So to do that, we need to set up some helper APIs to do the authentication with Strapi. So let's go set this up now. So we'll go API, and then we'll create a register.ts to handle our registration, and then a user.ts. So we'll go to login, and then we'll add our helper API here. And essentially what this is doing is it's sending a post request to Strapi. So it's using localhost, which is, if you remember, that's our Strapi localhost. And then we're targeting API auth local, which is essentially the endpoint we need to have to get all of this to work. Now, although that is amazing, it's also kind of one of the downsides to do an authentication here. Like I mentioned earlier, Strapi is currently migrating to Auth0, and NextJS 13 is a little shaky with NextAuth, and them talking to one another isn't really great at the moment. In fact, it's quite difficult. So we're building a custom solution which includes this API to talk to Strapi, which sends this post request and then gets the response back once we send the username and password. So that's what we're sending to this endpoint to essentially get access to it. And then we're getting the response and keeping it in the data here. And we're checking to see if the response is coming back okay. So if the response comes back okay, we're going to get the data in a token format called JWT. And if not, then we've got an error message, and then we're throwing another error if we're getting a 405 as well. We've got a custom error message here. So that's essentially all it is. It's a post request, and we're fetching information from an endpoint with a username and password that we're going to get from the UI, from the login page that we're about to create. Now the registration is very similar. We're accessing well, it's essentially localhost 127.00.1. It's the same thing almost, except sometimes Strapi can be funny about using localhost. So in this case, using that IP works a lot smoother. And this endpoint is API auth local register, which is different from the last one. The last one was auth local, and this is auth local register, and it's a post request, and we're essentially sending the username, email, and password. So slightly different. The same again, waiting for a response, and then we're going to handle it. So if it's a 200 or a 405 or whatever, we're going to handle that with this code. And then the user API essentially goes and grabs the user meta information with the token that we get from logging in. So you can see that here. And this just confirms the authorization. So the way this works is you can see here that this is a GET request. So we, in the login API helper, we send information to Strapi. And then in the user.ts, this is us trying to get information from the users.me endpoint on Strapi. And this will essentially give us all kinds of information about the user using the token that we get from making the request. So it's a lot to take in right now, but it will make a lot more sense when we build out the UI and you'll see what it all means. So we created the login page earlier. What we're going to do is just update this now and add a little bit of markup to get us going. So here we go. So this is the login component. So you can see there's a lot more that's been added. We'll start from the very top. So we've got a user data interface here. And this is set as an interface. It's just so we can extend it in the future. We can probably survive. We can probably survive just having this as a type for now, actually. Just because in the future, well, later on in this tutorial, we will make it an interface and we will make it extendable and exported as well. We'll be using this across the app. But what we're getting back is the auth token, which is the JWT token. It's like a big hashed number, alphanumeric value. So it will be like something like that. So yeah, that's what we're getting back. We get the username, obviously, and then we get some very important information of whether the user is logged in or not. And that's confirmed through, well, it's literally called confirmed. So you'll see it later on. So we've got this as a React functional component. So we don't actually need React function component as a type because TypeScript essentially knows that this is going to be a functional component based off everything that we're using here. So we don't need to actually include that anymore nowadays. So we've got some state here. So this is going to be the username. We've got the password. We've got login errors here, and then the user data, which is this here. We've got a handle login response. So essentially, we do a fetch like we've shown you earlier to API auth local, and we're just sending the username and the password, or the identifier, because the identifier could be the email or the username. So it's up to the user which one they want to use. And we wait for the data to come back, and then we create a user data. Essentially, we assign these values to the user data object, and then we add that to state here. So set user data, and then this here essentially becomes that value, and we're going to log that out. So we're going to see what that value actually looks like. And then obviously a little bit of error handling here. And then we've got this login error that we're setting in state. An error has occurred during login. Please try again later. So very simple. Handle sign out. We're not really doing too much with that. So we're just nullifying the user data, and we'll just console log that out to show you that that is the case. Now the interesting part is the markup here. So the markup here is we've just got a very simple title that says login. We're doing this in a form. And we're also making sure that this doesn't show, all of this doesn't show if the user is logged in. So if the user is logged in, we don't want this to show. And then on submit, we're doing the handle login, which is up here. It does all the logic for logging in. So we've got 3 inputs here. So we've got 2 inputs here, the username or email, or the identifier, and the password. And we're essentially taking the value from the input, and then we're just sending it up in state to set identifier, which is set, email or username, and set password here. And we're just adding some basic types and labels, nothing too exciting. We also have some error handling here. So if we get an error, it's going to log it here in red in a paragraph, and we can actually change this to use MUI. So this is going to use MUI now with the login error. And we also have a button to log in and a button to register as well. So if you need to register, you can go to the register page. But if you need to log in, you can log in if you've got a username. So that's that. And then essentially we're just going to use this for testing for now. So we're just going to show the username and ask if they're logged in. And then we're going to have a sign out button, and that's not going to do anything for now. And it's going to tell us whether we're logged in or not here. But yeah, that's essentially what the login component does. So without further ado, let's go have a look. So click sign in here. Right, we need to create a login.module.sass file. You can see that I've used lowercase for the title of this Sass file, just because it's a page. And ideally, we don't really want to be styling or adding logic to page components, but because we're in the early testing stages, we can do that. Generally, what you want to do with a page component is just keep it fairly dumb. So you keep the logic and you keep the styling kind of away from it. So this would just be made up of components. That's if you want to do it at a very higher level. So we'll just grab some quick styling for the login box. And what this essentially will do was just center it, add a max width on the input. So it's just kind of like in a box in the middle. So we're saying 40 rem, and then we're just going to center it and add a bit of padding on the top. Okay, so if we refresh that, we can now see the login page. So you can see we've got 2 inputs and a login and register. Now I've already got a username on here, so I can test to see whether it works. So I'll put those details in now. Oh, it's already got it. And let's click login, and that works. So you can see that it's currently logged us in to my username that I've used. And it lets me know that, yes, we are indeed logged in. So if I click sign out now and then refresh, see that it's gone. I do actually want this to show. So for now, I will just comment that out. So I want this to always show just for testing purposes. What's the area? Okay. Right, so now that we can see that this is always here, just for testing purposes for now, it says logged in as nothing and is logged in no. So that is currently working. So if we click login now, it gives us the correct information. So we're now connecting to Strapi's auth endpoint, and we're logging in via that. So we'll click sign out. So yeah, the login page is working, but we're logging in, and that's all well and good. We're getting authorized. And if we go to the console here, and if I was to log in, this is the information we're getting. Let me just make this a little bigger. You can see we're getting the auth token. It's telling us whether we're logged in or not, and the username. So that's the response we're getting from the server. That information is not really much good to us. If we, let's just say we refresh the page, we can see that if we just refresh the page, it's all gone. The state is only ever kept at the point at which we log in there and get the response. If we refresh, it's gone. That's no use to us. If we want users to go through the site from start to finish, and then they leave, go away, come back, start a new session, close the browser down. So if they go and do all that, they still want to be able to use the app as you would, you would expect. So how do we actually do that? Well, like I said, there are some very difficult issues with trying to do this right now with Strapi and NextJS. But the easiest way to do it is to essentially store it in a cookie. And we can keep the cookie for 7 days, 30 days, 90 days. It's really down to you. For me, I'm going to keep it for 7 days as the expiry time. But if we store the information, so if we store this information in a cookie that stays on the browser, the user can carry on using the site as normal. There's nothing here that compromises security, really. And this is all unique, and Strapi checks this. Strapi kind of takes care of some of the security side of it. But I would say that ideally, I would probably have this handled by Auth0 eventually when Strapi fully moves over, or something like NextAuth, or something else that really thinks about security in the background for your users. So as a point of improvement, that's something I would do once you build this whole project out. But for now, using a cookie is really good, gets you going, gets the auth working, and it's fairly secure. So it's not the worst thing in the world. So we'll go and do that now. So we'll add cookies. We'll take this user information and we'll put it in a cookie. And to do that, we're going to need something called JS cookie, which is a module, which is an npm package we'll need. So we'll open up the terminal here, and we are going to install a JS cookie as a dev dependency and the types for JS cookie. Brilliant. If you go back to the login page, now there's no use it's just adding the logic to do this within the login component, because we're going to need to log in several different places on the header, possibly the footer, several different places on the site. We're going to need to handle this logic. We're also going to need access to whether the user is logged in or not in several different places on the site, whether that's just for the username details, the email address, the profile page, the header, lots of places we're going to need to know who the user is, if they're logged in or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a custom hook to take the information, put it in a cookie, and then go grab that information from a cookie as well. We'll go here and we will create a new folder called hooks, and we will call it use user data, best name ever. And then if you remember us talking earlier, we said that we're going to have a user data type. This is that one. It's essentially that type that we created in the login folder here, user data. So if we can delete this now. Should complain at some point somewhere. We can put this back in now. There we go, user data type. And then we'll import that from the hook, custom hook. Brilliant, right, and that's all set up again. So if we go to this hook information, we can see that we've got some state here, which holds the information, which holds the user information. And then we've got a use effect here, which is essentially the entirety of the hook. And what it's doing is it's getting the user data once it's set, like for example in the login. So we're going to use JS cookie to create the cookies, and then we're going to use this hook to go and grab that information and use it across the site. So it's going to pass the information, and then it's going to essentially update the user data. And then it's going to tap into some storage methods on the window, and basically kind of like listen out for it. So listen out for any changes on any storage changes. And yeah, we're going to call it user data. So then if we head back to the login page and then update this, you can see now we don't actually need this. Let's delete that. Just grab this type here, pop that here, pop that there. Make sure we import that. Anywhere else that's been used? No. We've still got our handle logic, but what we're doing now is we're importing cookies from JS cookie. So you can see that in our use effect, we're getting user data and then we're passing it, but we're also setting the user data, very importantly, within our handle login. So when we click login, we put in the information and then we set a cookie up which has the user data information, which is this here, so this information, and then essentially we just reload the page, and that is to make sure that we get all the information possible, and we re-render to basically allow everything to get the information from the cookie. We do the same here. We remove the cookie user data when we sign out. So we add it here in the sign in and then remove it on the sign out. Very simple. And what that does is that gives us access to all of that. But otherwise, it's the same. Let's go have a look and see how that works. So we'll reload this. We'll sign out. So now if I log in, you can see that it reloads the entire page. So that's what that little flash there was. It says we're logged in. So let's go have a look at the cookies. And you can see we now have a cookie here, which includes our username, the hashed in, and it says we're logged in, and it's got the JWT token or the auth token from Strapi. So now if we were to refresh this, it remembers every time. Go to profile, home, curious courses, sign in, it remembers. And that is essentially what we wanted. So we'll go back here. You can see this part here, cookie set user data JSON stringify. It says it expires in 7 days, which is exactly correct. That's what we wanted. You can set this to 30 days if you want. Whatever it is, this is being handled by JS cookies. So we'll set it to 30 for now. We'll change that there. But just like that, you now have access to the cookie across the site. And I'll show you how that hook works. But you now have, through the hook, access to that information. It's all well and good as having that information and that cookie being set in the login page. But if you look up here, these three here, we really need this being set in the header. So the best thing to do is kind of go one level up and sort all this logic out in like a layout component or something like that. We don't really want to set it in the layout component, but for now we'll put it there just because it's kind of a higher up level that controls a lot of these places. So let's go to layout here and update this. We're actually using our hook. So you can see this hook that we created, use user data. This is how we essentially use it. So for example, if you were to console log this user data, which is essentially information from the hook, we can see some of the information. We'll just comment that out for now. Go to console, refresh. You now see that we're getting this information. So we're now getting this information from our hook command at will, which is amazing. I'll delete that for now. I'll add this back in. So we need to go create a prop in the header component that can take in this user data. So we'll go in and amend the header component now. So this is our very, very simple layout for the header component. So you can see here, we've created our header props type, which essentially takes in user data, which will be of user data type, which is pretty obvious. And then we're using then we've got two handle functions here. So this handles the sign out, which essentially just takes us to the logout page. So we're going to have a middle page. So if you click logout, you're not just going to straight away log out. We're going to go to another page that says logout, and then we can reload it from there. And it just controls the user experience a little bit better. And the same here, we're going to go to the login page and then control the login process from there. And this enables us to refresh the authenticated state on the entire app by doing this, as opposed to just trying to handle the logic here and there. Because it's in a cookie and not any kind of state, it's quite difficult to kind of refresh and re-render the entire NextJS app in this way. So the safest and best way to do it is kind of go to a different page and then handle that reload process there, the window reload, the page reload process there. So that's that. This is our markup, mostly unchanged, just slightly spaced out. So we're saying here now that our login and profile page are going to be control whether the user is logged in or not. So if the user is not logged in, then it's going to say login. And if they are logged in, it's going to say, here's the profile page, go to that. And there's another similar check here. Checks to see if they're logged in. If they are, it's going to show the sign out button. But if they aren't logged in, it's going to show the sign in and register button. And then it just takes them to the register and the, well, it's got some sign in functionality here. Essentially just pushes them to the login page. We could actually simplify this. We could just say href and login, and then we can get rid of this sign-in handler. The sign-in handler was more there for future proofing. So if you needed some more signing in functionality, you could have that. Handle sign out, we could probably have the same type of treatment. So we'll have logout here. We can just delete that. We don't need it. And we also don't need that. Oh, forgot to put an equal sign there. Right, we can get rid of that. So now this is a lot simpler. We can get rid of the use router import there. And let's go have a look at this now. So we refresh that now. You can see the styling's a little all over the place, but generally you can see that these two match now. So before we just had the login page that had the state in. So if I click sign out now, I get taken to the logout page, which is fine. If we go to home, Curious Bytes, go to login, click sign out here because that's still working, and you can see this now changes to sign in and register. If we go to register, there's currently nothing there. So we've got a big part of the flow sorted. So we're able to log in and we can actually save that state in a cookie, and we can access that state now through a custom hook across the page, across the app, in the header and across the pages. Now we need to have a further sign out page. So if I was to sign in and log in and then click sign out, we need to have this logout page sorted. So let's go and sort that out now. So we'll go to Logout. And what we'll do is very similar to what we've done on the other pages. We just say we're going to get some user data, and we've got a sign out that essentially just removes the user data, so a lot of the logic for actually signing out is being handled now on this logout page. So we've got a lot of the logic for signing out handled on this page because we want to focus and funnel people to this page to sign out for the reasons I mentioned above. So the authenticated state across the entire app is updated in one go rather than bit by bit, which is not a good user experience. And the markup essentially is, are you sure you want to sign out? And it's kind of like centering and boxing in the styling, because you can see we've got a bit of some class names here. That's what it's doing. We've got some buttons here that say sign out, some buttons here that say sign in. So yeah, we've got some based on whether the user is logged in or not. We're asking you, do you want to sign out? And then it thanks you for signing out once you do. So we'll just add some styling here. Logout.module.sass. Very similar to the kind of other container styling we did for the other pages. It's just very simple. We're kind of boxing it in, centering it, and adding a bit of padding on top. So we'll go to logout page. So let's go and have a look now. So we'll refresh that. So it says, are you sure you want to sign out? So we'll go to the home page and then we'll click sign out. And then it takes us to the sign out page now. So it knows now that we are logged in and it double checks, are you sure you want to sign out? So we'll click sign out and it thanks us for signing out. And it gives us the option if we want to sign in again. So if you click this, it then takes us to the login page and we control the login information or the process and the flow here. And if you take a look at the header, you can see all of this being updated as we're going and doing all this. So log in, you can see it's updated in the header. Sign out here, it's updated in the header. Brilliant. Now we've got a lot of this working in communication with each other. So now we can see that all these parts of the site are communicating with each other when it comes to authentication. We can probably go ahead and update our profile page, which essentially is nothing at the moment. But here in the future, what we want to be doing is hosting all of our profile information. So let's go do that now. So we'll go to profile. I'll just make sure we add our style sheet now. And then we'll update our profile page. So we've got some state here for username and set username. So we're going to essentially go and get our user data from JS cookies. And then we're going to handle the logout by removing the user data. So on this, we're actually going to have a logout button as well. So like I said, all these things that we've set up that we can now use in different parts of the site. We can decide we don't really want to have the logout button here. Seems a bit redundant if we've got it in the header. These are all decisions we can come to later on. But for now, it's just kind of trying to have a home for this profile page for now, because the profile page is going to vastly change later on in the tutorials. But for now, we're having that. And then it says, welcome to your profile page. And then we're going to grab the username. We're going to have that in red from some state that we get from the cookie. So let's go take a look. And obviously we're using Material UI. We've got typography button, etc. So very interestingly, we're on the profile page right now, and it's saying you need to sign in. Now, we currently haven't signed in, so it's showing us that. So if we do sign in, go to the Hashian, log in, and then we go to the profile page, it lets us know. It says, that's our username. Welcome to your profile page. Do you want to log out? Click log out. So again, this is the exact problem. So if we don't funnel these through one place and reload, we get this difference here. So you can see that we've logged out, but we've not truly logged out. If I was to refresh this, it now knows that we've logged out. So it's now checked that there's no cookie, so it can update the header. But if you don't, like for example, send them to the sign up page, it doesn't know that. So how do we do that? Well, if we go to handle logout, we don't actually want it to go to the login page. We want it to go to simply to the logout page. And then if we try to log in, go to the profile page and then click log out from here. Thank you for signing out. Aha, right, so that is the culprit. It's very strange behavior. We don't actually want to remove the cookies from here. So we'll delete that. Let's try that again. So sign in, log in, go to the profile page, log out. Are you sure you want to sign out? And there we go. That's all sorted now. So we have that here. We don't actually need a logout button on the profile page. But you can see a little bit of root guarding here. Don't actually want people to get access to this for no reason. So that's fine. Let's actually sort out the header very quickly. What is the problem? Right, it's a width issue on the header itself. So let's go to header, let's add width 100%. Oh, the nav, interesting. That's on 100%. So what is it that's interesting? Okay, so add a little bit of styling here. Justify content space between. Get rid of that now. So yeah, these kind of need their own container really. So let's go to the header here. So we'll say button group, which is what we created earlier. So go here with button group, and just within here, we want these to have a width of max content. If we refresh this now, you can see now these have the width sorted. Just sign in. Purposefully not trying to sort out the styling too much, just because we've got the next episode, which is essentially a whole styling one to sort all this stuff out. No wrap. Oh, forgot to set the user data type here. User data type. Okay. Okay, so we just need to set the type here. It's having a bit of an issue. So let's sort out this sign out button. Ah, right, yep. So we've not added any styling here. We've got sign out button, white space, no wrap. Okay, there we go. That's sorted now. So it's sign out from there. Ask to sign out, sign in. Brilliant. So if we go to the profile page now, we can see that that's working fairly fine. Just need to add a bit of styling to this. Go to the profile page, and there we go. That is centered now. Brilliant. So now we have some styling on the profile page, which is amazing. Let's go ahead and tackle this register page. So we go to register here. Let's close all these other files down. We're getting bogged down with tab hell here. This is our register. So this is our register component. We've got our state here, which is brilliant. Username, set username, email, set email. If you remember the endpoint here, auth local register for Strapi requires these three. So username, email, and password. This is so that they can do the whole forgot password flow, and also they can log in with it as well. We're just doing a simple fetch here, getting the data, and we're getting some error information as well. We'll console logging that if we get that. If we have that issue, that's essentially what this is. We're doing a post request to that endpoint to send the username, email, and password that we get from these inputs here. And then we're just using state, so set email, set password, set username on the input value on the event, and just sending that up. So this state here, very simple, all being sent in this post request. Nothing too complicated, just a simple button here that says register. Because it's a form, we can just do the on submit here and have the handle register here, and then post request it. And there we go. So that is our registration form. So if I create a new user now, so I'll call it Curious Byte. I'll call it curious email at byte.com, and we'll put a password in. And then we'll click. Okay, so once we've clicked that, let's go to Strapi, and then go to Content Manager. Let's go to Users. And there we go. We can see that now our user has been added. So, oops, we can see Curious Byte, confirmed as true. true and real. Yeah, it's some more information about the user, when they were created, when they were last sort of updated their username. So there's a lot of information here, and obviously we can request it as well. So if we go to sign in, and then if we sign in as Curious, was that the username? Go double check. Curious Byte. And then we'll put in the password. We're logged in as Curious Byte. It's working as normal. So we've got the login, the header, the registration, the custom hook, all of that working, all of that communicating with Strapi. So I'm quite happy with that. I think that's pretty much the authentication wrapped up. We will take care of some of the user experience on the registration. So for example, we go to register here, we sign up. What do we do after this point? Where do they go? We'll sort all that out later on. We'll also style this up and make it nice. And that goes for the rest of the site as well. But I think as a starting point, I think this is quite good. And that's authentication with Strapi on NextJS. So we've built out the authentication on this app. It's a very skeletal set of authentication, but it's very, very important functionality. The user can register, log in, go to his profile page, sign out and navigate parts of the site. And if he doesn't have access, they'll be root guarded. They'll be told, no, you can't access that. And if they do, they can access it. So some very, very important functionality for our e-learning platform. But again, this is very skeletal, and in the next episode, we'll be looking at styling and setting up the themes, the component library, and much, much more. So a lot of fun stuff involved there. So make sure to like and subscribe, click the bell notification to know when all the other videos in the e-learning platform series are coming out, and make sure to follow me on the Hashton on Twitter. But until then, I'll catch you in the next one.